Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. It is Friday, October 24th, 2014, and I'm Ann McAdoo. Here's what's coming up tonight.
Tonight, the White House sends out emergency alerts amidst Ebola concerns. Then, could November elections be swayed by phony votes? And a history of IRS abuses. That's next on the Infowars Nightly News.
And let's just have a big round of boos for Alex Jones. Turn the mic on. Boos! It's horrible.
This is breaking news. New York and New Jersey have established a mandatory Ebola quarantine for any travelers who are coming in from West Africa. Now, this is following confirmation that a doctor who contracted Ebola was in New York. The new procedures were announced by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. It goes above and beyond the guidelines that are established by the federal government. Now, these new procedures do not ban flights from West Africa from entering the country, but they say we do believe it's appropriate to increase the current screening procedures from people that are coming from these affected countries. They believe it is within the state of New York and the state of New Jersey's legal rights. Now, travelers that are affected from West African countries will be subject to a mandatory 21-day quarantine at a government-supervised facility. Specific procedures for the quarantine and hospitalization are going to be determined by New York and New Jersey health departments. Basically, they're saying voluntary quarantine is an oxymoron. You are asking people to quarantine themselves. They've seen what happens, and they say it's too serious a situation to leave it to the honor system. The 2 U.S. nurses who contracted Ebola have been declared clear of the disease today. They were cured of this disease. Nurse Nina Pham was actually healthy enough to leave the hospital and meet up with Obama for a little hug session in the Oval Office. Now, she did take the time to thank Dr. Kent Brantley, who once again donated his plasma to help her recovery. Pham didn't have any of these experimental Ebola vaccines. Now, we've reported before on how this cure is kind of being overlooked, of course, in favor of these experimental vaccines that are set to hit the market. The World Health Organization reports that millions of doses of experimental Ebola vaccines will be produced by the end of 2015, and these vaccines could be offered to health workers on the front lines in West Africa as soon as December of 2014. Now, the World Health Organization cautions that vaccines, they won't be a magic bullet for ending the outbreak. Again, they stress there is no proven cure or vaccine for Ebola. That is, of course, until they can patent the magic blood of these people who are able to fight this disease. So we've got millions of doses of experimental vaccines coming our way. States say that they're all geared up. They're ready to deal with this disease. And every day, once again, we're being placated, being told there's nothing to worry about, nothing to worry your little heads about. So why this mysterious emergency alert that was sent out? It was sent out from the federal government today. It interrupted TV viewers. They were told to stand by for an emergency message, and they were also warned not to use their phones. TV channels automatically changed to local news stations, but no White House message ever came. Obviously, this prompted confusion and concern. We're in the middle of an Ebola crisis, so people were very concerned about this. Now, an AT&T spokesperson did come out and say that message was sent out erroneously by a mistake by a nationally syndicated radio station. However, the emergency alert system is mandatory by law. Stations have no control or power to block the signal once it's sent out. And the federal government is the only place where these emergency alert systems can be generated from. The federal government is the only one that can send out these emergency alerts. So that begs the question, Where did this come from? Why can't people use their phones? And was this just a trial run? Now, Obama raised some eyebrows earlier in the week when he talked about dealing with this Ebola crisis as a trial run for a possible deadlier airborne disease that could be coming in the future.
There may come a time, sometime in the future, where we are dealing with an airborne disease that is much easier to catch and is deadly. And in some ways, this has created a trial run for federal, state, and local public health officials and healthcare providers, as well as the American people.
So obviously those mysterious comments are going to pique the interest of people who are concerned about how the CDC is preparing to quarantine people who are even just showing signs of some sort of airborne disease. If it's not Ebola, it's some other deadly coming airborne disease. But where is this abundance of caution? That's the new buzzword that we're hearing, talking points, abundance of caution. Where is the abundance of caution being used when we are looking at shocking video of police officers there in New York? They were dumping their protective gear in a public trash can after leaving the area near the apartment of the Ebola doctor, Craig Spencer. Now, the clip shows the officers placing their gloves, face masks, and caution tape in the trash, and then they're just walking away from the scene outside of his apartment. Now, it's not known whether these two officers were actually inside of the apartment or if they were just clearing things that were from outside of it, but come on, I mean, wouldn't you at least not want to help spread the contagion of fear by dumping your hazmat materials in a public trash can right there and open air trash on the streets of New York? But the CDC has once again reassured us that their response to this Ebola outbreak has been more than effective. All the measures they're taking have been more than effective. Absolutely no irony today when they said this during the House committee hearing on the Ebola response. No irony in the fact that both Thomas Duncan and this new doctor both made it through the enhanced screening. Now, here's a tweet from the CDC last night confirming that Dr. Spencer went through the new enhanced screening at JFK. Tony Cartolucci writes, because of Ebola's incubation period, screening at airports is perhaps the least effective measure a state could put in place. And this is, of course, what we've been saying this entire time, and it just really doesn't make any sense. This honor system of people self-quarantining is not working, let alone the guy couldn't even make it the full 21 days of this self-quarantine. He had to go bowling. But even those people that were there defending the whole self-quarantine can't make any sense of this.
He called authorities and was isolated very expeditiously.
So you don't think he was contagious those 48 hours before?
From what we understand, people are infectious when they have a fever, not beforehand.
So why did you close the bowling alley? Why did they, put other people in quarantine? Why, if he's not contagious until he showed a fever and he's a doctor and he says he didn't have a fever until that morning, why did you have to shut down the bowling alley?
You know, it's a good question, and I think it gets to your issue of confidence. We really want to move in an abundance of caution. The bowling alley is closed so that it can be cleaned and decontaminated out of abundance of caution, and I expect it will be open and people will be bowling in the not too distant future.
You could have gotten sweaty, right? And you can transfer this via sweat, right? For that secretion could actually hold the Ebola virus for some time, correct?
So the bowling alley is being cleaned out of an abundance of caution, yes.
So there's no way, nobody has to worry that was at the bowling alley the night before. You can't catch it from bowling. They're just quarantining the entire facility and decontaminating it out of an abundance of caution. But there is no abundance for the troops. Now, this is where it gets weird. 3,000 plus troops are being sent to West Africa with insufficient training. We've already reported they're getting about 4 hours of Ebola training. And if by chance one of these soldiers does come in contact with the disease and it does come down with Ebola-like symptoms, well, let's hope that they're lucky enough to catch a flight.
Okay. How many aircraft are outfitted to move these individuals out of country in the event that this happens?
So for controlled movement, any aircraft can do, because they, as has been pointed out, they're asymptomatic and not contagious at that point. So any aircraft can do. At the present time, The only aircraft that can move the symptomatic patients is the State Department's Phoenix Air contract that you've seen moving the other Ebola.
And how many patients can that aircraft hold?
We're told, well, the aircraft can hold one at a time and can do 4 movements a week at this point.
4 movements a week?
Yes, sir.
Is that sufficient?
No, there is no need for an abundance of concern when it comes to protecting the lives of our troops, who are once again putting their lives on the line to help with this health crisis. No, they only need that abundance of caution when they are disappearing patients from hospitals or sending out emergency alert system, accidentally, or of course instructing healthcare workers and public servants to not even use the word Ebola. So something is definitely up, but I don't think we're going to really get to the bottom of it until after the elections. Just like we're not going to find out who is the new attorney general or how much Obamacare is going to cost until after the elections, and of course just how sweeping this immigration reform is going to be. All that we're going to find out after the elections.
Introducing the first proprietary oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, OxyPowder, backed by FDA-approved phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. All the toxins from the air, the food, the water, ultimately ends up in the gut or affects the gut. Take your health into your own hands and start cleansing your body today with OxyPowder. Secure your OxyPowder today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.